Hello, I am Lucy Atlee. I am a design and quality manager from Transport for London. I work in our commercial development team and I'm going to present TfL's Sustainable Development Framework and explain how we have used the University of Stirling's Dementia Services, Development Centres, Environments for Ageing and Dementia Design assessment tool in our Sustainable Development Framework. So we have been developing our Sustainable Development Framework for a couple of years, and it was finally launched in 2022 and is an open source tool for measuring environmental performance on construction projects. So we have created the SDF on 5 overarching principles on our mission to build a better and more sustainable London. So the first principle is to build a better London. So TfL are London's biggest developable landowner, and as such we have the opportunity and the responsibility to really change the way that London is for the better. We want to deliver real results, which means setting tangible metrics for all of our KPIs. We want to think long term, so that's looking at things like the longevity of the developments that we create. How will they look in 50 years' time? We are looking at how they'll perform under, for instance, overheating, looking ahead 50 and 80 years. We want to look at long-term employment opportunities, apprenticeships. We want to think about things like age-friendly design. We want to take a holistic view, which is looking across the social, environmental and economic aspects of sustainability, and also to respond to local context. So the SDF is comprised of 9 dimensions. The first 3 are social, so vibrant places, which looks at things like healthy streets, age-friendly design, child-friendly design. Then social cohesion, which looks at engagement and the use of public space. Livable communities, which looks at amenities and also the provision of affordable housing. Then our environmental KPIs include health and well-being, looking at air quality, daylighting, climate and ecological resilience, which looks at things like urban greening factor, biodiversity net gain, high performance buildings, which is looking at material selection, and then is also very much our roadmap to net zero carbon. Then supporting and developing local economies, we have financial sustainability, which is looking at things like green leases and green loans, local prosperity, which is looking at jobs and business support, and neighbourhood investment, which is very much investment into the TfL network. So we have 9 dimensions under these 3 pillars of sustainability, and around 30 are unique to the SDF, but most of them are based on existing policy and standards. A lot of these standards are either GLA policy or BREEAM, HQM, and then there's a small number that we've taken from other places where we've not found a standard that we could use in the SDF, and that's where we've used the dementia design tool. So we've set targets for good and leading practice for all of our KPIs, and generally good practice would be aligned to policy. So the handbook is an overview of the SDF, and then it's supported by these 9 technical guidance documents which cover in detail exactly how to calculate each of the KPIs. Everything's available open source on our website. So the process for applying the SDF indicators through the RIBA work stages would be that at RIBA stage 0, we would decide which KPIs are applicable to any one project. Then at stage 1, we would make sure that the necessary consultant appointments were made and that those appointments are complete and cover all of the requirements for the SDF. Then at RIBA stages 2 and 3, we have a cyclical process where we review performance and then look for improvements at each 4 weeks. And we would look at all of our projects together. We would look for trends where we're doing well, trends where we're not doing well. We would troubleshoot projects that aren't doing well where others are, and look to improve across the portfolio. Then at stage 4, we would want to make sure that all of the SDF requirements are embedded into tender packs, and at stage 5, we would want to make sure that the contractor is very clear on what they're delivering in relation to the SDF. Then we have a number of KPIs which have a post-construction element to them. So we have a post-occupancy evaluation KPI, but we also have KPIs where delivering something would be good practice, but actually doing a post-occupancy audit on it would be leading practice. And then we have some in-use components to SDF KPIs. So looking in a little more detail at Vibrant Places. So Vibrant Places is a lot about public realm, and it's comprised of these 7 KPIs. So healthy streets, which is a TfL metric, then access and inclusion, which is looking at the engagement of an access consultant throughout the life of a project, then child-friendly design, where we've used the Hackney Child-Friendly Design SPD as a measurement tool. Then play space for teenagers, which is very much about play space for girls and making sure that girls are involved in the design of play space. Age-friendly design, which we are using the University of Stirling's Dementia Design Audit tool. And that's very much a tool that we couldn't find anywhere else, and it's been embraced by our projects. We're now using it to measure how age-friendly all of our projects are. So if I look at that in a little more detail and set out how we use that in the SDF. So this is what the technical guidance looks like. So for each KPI, we have some information on what it is. So why we would have it in the SDF. Then we explain how it adds value. So in this case, it would be value, separate to the value for older people. It would be, wider economic value and value to the development. Then we would highlight what types of projects the indicator applies to. So you can see here that this indicator would be applicable to residential, commercial and master plan projects. We then indicate who is responsible. So the architect would lead the process, our development manager would be accountable, and they would be supported by access consultant, landscape architect, interior designer and M&E engineer. Then we indicate which RIBA work stages work would happen at, what the connected UN Sustainable Development Goals are, and then finally which SDF indicators are connected to this KPI. Then we go into more detail on how to actually calculate it, and this is where we would refer people to the University of Stirling tool, and we've been given a recommendation on where to set good and leading practice for our projects through that. So you can see here we've got 60% score for good practice and an 80% score for leading practice. Then we go into more detail on exactly what would happen at each RIBA work stage, and who would lead those processes and what documentation would be produced at each work stage in relation to this KPI. And then finally, we have links to relevant policy and then any further reading if anyone would want to find out a bit more about any one KPI topic.